Welcome to 720 System Strategies YouTube channel. Today we have a special guest, Sheereen McNair from Maryland. Sheereen, how you doing?
Hi, Phil. I'm doing great. How are you?
Thanks for taking time on this call and just, talking through the past year, 18 months. You've had quite a journey, and that's why I was like, hey, can we talk about this? Because it's an extraordinary ride you've been on.
Well, thanks for having me. And you're right, it has been quite the whirlwind, particularly the last 6 months to a year. I was a solo practitioner in the most literal sense. I was doing the marketing, the intake, the retaining, the petition preparing, the final reviews. I was doing everything, sending documents to the trustee. I did the whole thing. And that's what I did for over a decade, until I decided that this system is broken, it's not sustainable, and I need to get better processes in place. And I don't even recall how I came across it, but somehow I came across Glade and it had your logo as a partner or something to that effect.
On the leaderboard, that weekly
There-
leaderboard.
The leaderboard, that's where it was.
Yeah.
That's exactly where it was. You're right, on the filings.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to know more. So I clicked on it and I got to connect with you, not knowing that you would literally be the answer to all my prayers. Like, the things that you were able to do for me and for my practice, especially in the last 6 months, has really been a big turnaround for me. I have the pleasure of being able to work with Rich Mack. And one of the things that I shared with him is I've been doing this business for over a decade, and I have not made $1 in profit in over a decade. I do a lot of pro bono work, and I do a lot of things to help others that are less fortunate than me. And then I realized that I was doing a disservice to myself because I was not able to do for myself and for my family the way that I should have been able to with this type of volume and this type of practice. So the beauty is I've
Mhm.
connected with you all, and everything from the initial leads that come in that still need nurturing, to the influencer leads, to the 3 pillars intake system, from, they do the retaining appointments. I literally just show up, and at that point, when I speak to a client, they've already made some type of good faith, either a payment or some type of intent to retain my services. So the whole sales pitch and having to convince someone has already happened. At this point, they're making an informed decision. They're coming to me. They're actually excited about the process, particularly from the knowledge that they've gained watching the Ladylike Lawyer and other influencers. And so it just makes for a smoother transaction. The conversion has been so much higher.
So, Shereen, before we go down that, let's unpack this a little bit because
Okay.
let's talk about where you were a year
Okay.
ago. So you went years and years and years, like you said, without making a profit. So you're running a typical small business, like a lot of people do, and you're trying to figure it out. You're spending money, you're doing this, but in the end of the day, it's like, where's my money?
Right.
Right? I mean, Mike Michalowicz has a great book called Profit First, where most entrepreneurs don't pay themselves. And
Mhm.
at the end of the year, it's like losing money, losing money, losing money. Why am I doing this? Like, where am
Yeah.
I putting money into savings? Like, how am I supporting my quote investors, your family, right?
Mhm.
Like, we all have investors. There are families at home, right?
Right.
And so you're feeling what a lot of bankruptcy attorneys feel, right? Like this energy of like, gosh, this is just exhausting. So I remember our first call, and you were like, "Wow, you mean you will take our intake calls, right?" And various things we start unpacking, and you were like, "Man, I'm going to try this out." There's a huge transition, right? Like from deciding, "Okay, I do it all," to "I'm not going to do this part of it." What were the first things you noticed? What did you learn? Looking back on that time, what did you learn?
Well, I
Like,
learned that delegation is a skill, and I had to learn how to delegate these tasks and these duties. But what made it easier is that the people who were doing it were actually better than me. And
Mm.
so I was like, they're really good at closing. They're really good at converting. I'm pretty good too, but they're just better at it and they're more specialized. And so I decided that I also wanted to finally operate as the CEO, start focusing more on my analytics and my numbers, obviously providing legal services and legal advice, but being able to hand that off to your team has been such a relief. I've been able to have more time to meet with clients and just have more in-depth type conversations and not just focusing so much on converting, converting, converting because as I said before, our conversion rate is so much higher now that I'm working with your team. And I
Well, I
was
mean, yeah, and a lot of times attorneys, they don't realize that bankruptcy is a sales conversation, right?
It really
And
is.
they're counselors. Like, bankruptcy attorneys are counselors. They're giving advice and you're counseling. Obviously, you don't wanna put anyone into a bankruptcy that shouldn't get a bankruptcy, but they miss the nuance of urgency
Right,
because the debtor will not file on their own. They will bury their head in the sand and do nothing, right? And that's
right,
what matters. So, when we took that over, and at the time, you were figuring out bifurcation in Maryland, right?
right. And so that was a place where I would probably file between literally 0 and 3 cases every month, and that was pretty standard. Once
Were
I
you
was
bifurcating at that point, or
no, I
was
was
your
not.
oh, you weren't. So
I was not.
you were doing full intakes, and you're filing 0 to 3 cases a month.
That's correct. And so once I started working with you all, I started filing 5 cases and then 8 cases and then 10 cases. And then I introduced the bifurcation model to my practice, and that also helped to increase the filings substantially. However, it also kind of increased the work on the back end as well. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like you gotta just be more particular about who you offer the bifurcated fee arrangement to. But that was something that's still relatively new, and I wanna call it more uncharted territory because a lot of attorneys in my district are not as forward
Mhm.
thinking, I'll say that, and they were afraid to offer bifurcation even though it's not there's nothing in our district that says it's not allowed.
Mm.
Right, but that's something that they just were not comfortable offering. So it was a very traditional model where the filing fees and attorney's fees and everything are expected to be paid upfront, and that ended up becoming a barrier because a lot of consumers are in a financial constraints, and if they had the 2,500 or whatever it's required upfront, then oftentimes they probably wouldn't even be looking for you in the first place.
What was your payment structure when you went from paid in full to bifurcated? What was your payment structure? Like, how much down, and then what were your payments post-petition?
So altogether, the payments post-petition were $200 a month for 10 months,
Mhm.
and we did I think it was about $200 down, so it was very low down payment. Of course, with the bifurcation, you have
Mm,
2 service agreements,
mm,
pre-petition and then post-petition, and then the I was also working with a company that would manage the payment plans.
mhm.
So they would contact people if their payment if they had insufficient funds or if the payment didn't go through, whatever that was. So I
And
had that
how were your collections? Like, what do you know your collection rates on those, petitions? On
yeah,
the
so
post-petition numbers?
those numbers were they were doing okay for the first, I would say, maybe 4 months, and then we started seeing some clients missing payments or
Mhm.
skipping out, but I actually ended up having to get away from that model. There was a period of time where I got into some compliance issues, and I had to do a lot of interfacing with the US Trustee, which was not the most pleasant experience, but, it built character and it made me aware of some of the ways that I could improve my practice and become more in compliance with what the UST in my district wanted to see, particularly from practitioners offering a bifurcated fee arrangement.
Was part of the compliance issue part of the bifurcation?
Yes.
Okay. So
Part of that.
you went from 0 to 3 to 5 to 8, or what was that the number you said? Like,
Right.
so you went from 0 to 3 to 5 and 8, 5 to 8 filings a month. You had compliance issues with the US trustee. She called you in, or he called you in and said, "Hey, um, you need to do XYZ." Like,
Right.
let's
So
speak into that a little bit.
there were motions that needed to be filed, there were disclosures that needed to be made. In particular, had issues with some of the language in my retainer agreements. So these are some of the issues that we had to flesh out and kinda deal with. But there was a series of different things that happened, and one of the outcomes is I had to I had a judge in our district put a 90-day filing ban on me and my practice. My office was not allowed to file new cases for 90 days, and that was something that was not foreseeable, was not expected. So, when these trustees file motions and we say, "And any such relief that the court deems necessary," the judge just kinda threw that one in. I don't honestly don't think the US trustee was expecting that either. But long story short, that was what I had to deal with. So from January through about the 1st of April, I was not allowed to enter an appearance in new cases. I was not allowed to file new cases. And that did a lot of a more psychological damage for me.
I
I
can
literally
imagine. I think any bank attorney watching this, it was like, "Hey, you can't file for 90 days." You start questioning, "Well, what am I gonna do?"
well, that's exactly what I started doing. I was like, "What am I gonna do? How am I gonna make ends meet? What about these clients that have retained me?" I have a more efficient workflow and style, so having to stall someone's file for 90 days just kinda gave me, like, the creeps, and I just everything about it was devastating. However, one of the things that I learned is that pressure can create diamonds, and so I ended up using that 90-day ban as an incubation period. And the beauty of it all is while I was able to do my continuing education, get in compliance, and work on my marketing, I had 720 working in the background nonstop. They were still doing intakes, they were still doing retainers, they were still taking payments because at this point, I was no longer allowed to do bifurcated models, so
Right.
all of my clients had to be paid in full. But I didn't realize that the payment plan model was actually better for my office and for me and for what I needed. And it's easier than doing a bifurcation because you don't have to backtrack.
Right.
And
You don't have to file and then get another retainer agreement signed and you're filing a skeletal petition with the bifurcation and then redoing everything later. I remember that moment when you got that 90-day ban and I gotta tell you, I was really when we talked on the phone that day and you were like, "I'm getting face to face." Well, I don't know if it was the judge or the trustee, but you were like, I'm gonna get in face to face with her." It was a woman, right? Wasn't it a woman?
yeah, it was a
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah, I remember. You were like, "I'm getting face to face with him. I'm getting face with I'm gonna work through this. I'm gonna work through this."
Yeah.
And, you didn't shy away. You didn't, like, bury your head in the sand. You faced it straight on. I'm assuming I wasn't in the meetings. You completely owned it because that's why you're still filing. Right? Like a 90-day ban could easily have turned into a 120-day ban or a
Oh, yeah.
180-day ban, right?
Okay.
And you must have cleaned that up. So what advice would you give, bankruptcy attorneys or a debtor attorney when they get, you know, these motions or these inquiries or all this stuff? I mean, it's scary, obviously, because
Yeah. It
that
can
what
be intimidating. It really
yeah,
can be,
very
but
intimidating. What advice would you give them based on what you learned from that 90-day ban?
it was just really the human experience and what I did in going and meeting with this person face to face. Mind you, everything in our district has been virtual even before COVID, but now with the changes since COVID, all the Zooms being on all the 341s and hearings being on Zoom, I haven't really seen anyone
Mhm.
in person in like
Yeah.
5 years. So, for me to go to the UST's office and have a sit down with her,
So
it
so
just
let
brought, like,
let
a human component to
so
this.
let's talk about that. You show up. I mean, was it combative? Was it
Not at all.
adversarial? Like what was that like? You showed up and she's probably sitting there wondering what you're gonna be like.
Right, and
And
I
she's
think
like, "Hi,
that
nice to meet," and then how'd it go? Like, what was that like?
that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to do it in person, because when we were doing everything in writing and over email, it became more adversarial, the tone wasn't as friendly, and I just needed her to see me as a human being, as a practitioner, as a person who does make mistakes. However, I'm owning up to my mistakes, and I want to be better, and I want to get in compliance. So I allowed her to be that person to guide me through this,
So
and
it became like a mentor-mentee relationship a bit.
right. It became more of like a mentor-mentee as opposed to an adversarial, because I did not wanna be like this rogue attorney just doing whatever. I wanted to be in compliance, and I want to be someone who the trustee's office sees as, a decent attorney, not someone who's causing trouble, right? So that's pretty much what that ended up being. She helped me a lot, and I'm super grateful for her help and for her guidance, and that's what helped me to get in compliance and eventually have the order entered that will allow me to resume filing. But all of this is that 90-day ban that could have really derailed me.
Clearly.
I used as an incubation period, even though I was literally sometimes at home just laying in a fetal position, like, stuck. It was actually Rich and his team motivating me, inspiring me, keeping me uplifted, and then the occasional email or text like, "Hey, we just signed up this many people."
Yeah.
And so it was really great to know that they are still working in the background even though I'm going through all this emotional, mental,
Mhm.
financial duress, but they're still holding me down, right?
So let's
So
let's talk about the Rich Mac and Three Pillars Bankruptcy Intake, right?
yes.
So this is a company that we work very, very closely with. With NACPA, we're together. And it all started because I had a client that said the leads aren't good. And I said to him, I said, "Well, what if we took the calls for a month?" He said, "Sure." I called Rich. "Hey, will you take these calls for a month?" Same exact leads. Closing rates were fine. Everything worked out. He was profitable, but it was his staff that were missing the calls, missing the appointments, whatever. So that's why we've sort of like formed this partnership. And it's really designed for people who are operating as counselor and need to get out of that first part to get the lead off the street, talk to the attorney. And let me just, for summarizing for people who don't understand what this is, we take the call, or Rich Mac's team takes the call, 30-minute intake, 77 questionnaire, fully customizable to the based on the attorney. We quote their fees of the attorney and then collect a debit card to make sure they show up to the appointment. And now when we talked about you, because we're like, I don't know if the 3 of us were on the call or I talked to Rich directly, it was like, "Okay, what are we gonna do? We can't file for 90 days." And I remember we talked about pivoting away from bifurcation, paid in full model. We can take the time to collect all the payments, collect all the docs, get everything going, and when we hit that 90-day mark and the order's lifted, we can just start filing and really getting paid, right? Is
That's
that how it was from your perspective?
That's exactly how it
Okay.
was, and the beauty in all of this, after that 90-day period, we started filing in April. I went from filing between 0 to 3 cases for years. This April, I was able to file 26 cases.
26 cases. I mean, the nice thing is we had 90 days
Yeah.
to build, and part of that, like, so first of all, I didn't know you had 26 cases. Congratulations.
Thank
26
you, that's a
cases in 1 month?
milestone in 1 month, yeah, and the irony is that we had more, but there's something happening here in Maryland. They're changing the homestead exemptions.
Mhm.
June, it's going from 27,900 to 125,000.
Hmm.
So there are some clients who I've re-strategized now that the homestead exemption will cover the equity in their home. So we gotta wait for them, but We actually had more ready to go
Wow.
for April. Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, all this revenue coming in. I mean, you went the emotion of probably, "Oh my gosh, I just got this order, can't file in 90 days. What am I gonna do?" To, as you said, the pressure built gets produces the diamonds. And now 90 days later or 120 days later, you filed 26 filings in the month of April. And plus the nice thing is there's no post-petition work. Like it's not like you have to redo those petitions, right?
Yeah. It's literally the model that I have, we touch the file one time, go to the 341, hopefully there's no issues, very rarely are there, as far as amendments that need to be made or anything like that, so it's basically touch the file once and move on. So, it's
Wow.
been really good.
The model you have is, we generate these leads, we put them on Rich's calendar. Rich manages it, gets them off the street, hands them off to you, right?
Yes.
He puts them on the payment plan at the same time?
He does, he
Okay,
does. So there was a period, for example, where the tax refunds were coming in, and so we were getting more paid in fulls, but for the clients that are not able to do that, he puts them on the payment plan from the onset.
got it.
So it's already done, and that's why I say it's great because by the time I talk to them for the first time, they've already paid me,
Yeah.
at least a portion. So it doesn't feel like a waste of time. I love talking to debtors, I love talking to leads, but it feels better knowing that you've already made a commitment to me, right? So that's why I love that.
Yeah.
And another thing, I went from 1 person, and in the last 6 months, I've since hired 8 people to help. I had to scale my operations to match the demand because one of the things that I love about your systems is that we need to keep the impression, right, on the client the same throughout. So their first impression is our intake, which is the 720 systems, nothing but raving reviews. And so in order for me to keep that standard, I've had to hire other people to make sure that, you know, I use Glade. So we need to make sure that the messages in Glade are being answered, the documents are being reviewed, all these other things. So it's been really fun just building systems and processes and having to scale to meet the demand. It's been really cool doing
And
that.
I'm assuming it's all support staff, right?
Right. So it's pretty much all support staff. I have,
Doc collection people, that type of thing?
they are I initially, I started doing cross training, but now they're more specialists and they really like just one thing. So I have a couple of girls doing the petition preparing. I also have a
Mm,
few doing the document reviews. So that's going into Glade, making sure all the documents are there. We've trained them to look for certain things. For example, things that could raise red flags at the 341s. They've been trained to identify those proactively
mhm,
so that the trustee is not the one bringing it to our attention at the 341. We're able to catch these beforehand,
uh-huh,
address them with the client. So essentially, they're all support staff. They're doing documents, they're doing concierge type work. They're interfacing with the clients,
got it.
making sure that the clients are easy because they get very anxious and
Mhm.
very, like, restless, and they just need reassurance throughout the process, and that's really what they're there to do.
Are they full-time? How's that work?
There's 2 that are part-time, there's
Okay,
6 that are full-time,
okay,
and the ones that are full-time, they literally work 40 hours a week,
mhm,
and they're doing both pre-petition work,
okay,
like preparing petition schedules,
mhm.
and I also have some doing post-petition work, like making amendments to Chapter 13 plans, motions that need to be filed. Obviously, I review everything before it gets filed, but they're there to help draft these
So
things.
they draft it, they give it to you and go from there.
That's
Are
right.
you filing your 7s through Glade?
Not yet.
Not
That's
yet. I
something
know they're
that
rolling that out state by state.
right.
Right. Okay. So you're not filing it on Glade yet, but I'm sure that's gonna come.
Right, so that's a goal for Q3 to start
And are you
filing.
collecting all the payments through Glade?
Yes.
Do you have any stats on collection rates or anything like that? I know they have a very, like, aggressive, not aggressive in a bad way, but the way they're going after, the client to remind them to pay or you missed a payment, all that stuff
That
has been
helps me
effective.
though, because I don't have to be the bad guy chasing them down. So,
Yeah.
with Glade, if there's a failed payment, Glade will automatically try it again, and if that doesn't work, then they have these AI messages that go out, and when they message the client, they get that in the form of both a text message and an email.
Mhm.
So Glade really has it covered. Very rarely have we had to reach out to someone to say, "Hey, your payment didn't go through," or whatever
That's
that issue
great.
may be.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. And do you have any stats on collections?
I
If you
don't,
know any of off the top of your head? Okay,
I
it's okay. It's all
I don't have exact numbers, but I do, have these weekly powwows with 720,
mhm,
and for April, I believe it was somewhere in, like, the $38,000 range,
mhm.
so that was another milestone for me as
So
well.
imagine like a year ago, you were bringing in like a fraction of that, a fraction of that. And in a
Yeah,
year from now, it's gonna be at a whole different level. Before you know it, you'll be over 100,000 a month.
that's what I'm hoping for,
Yeah.
and I like, with these systems and the support, that's something that's very feasible.
See, the thing is that bankruptcy attorneys don't understand it's all about the system because you don't have to touch the system. If you build a system, it works. Part of the reason why you could do so many bankruptcies is because you had all these leads that we're following up with. We stopped the advertising during that 90 days on Facebook, right?
Right,
Like like we're following up with these leads and these leads converted because they got warmed up and they know you and we go
right.
from there. So, wow, that's great. I mean, Shireen, we try to have people on that have gone through adversity. We want people who have success stories, down the road in, 10 years down the road. You're a success story in the past, you're a newbie, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like 1 year in and you've gone through some serious pressure. And I
right.
love the fact that you brought the humanity to that meeting with the trustee because I've seen it often. I've seen attorneys that get a motion to disgorge fees and it's just I it becomes so back and forth with the filing responses that it takes all the humanity out of it, and you just, like, brought it in, and you turned her into a mentor,
Yeah.
right? And you became a better attorney because of it als obviously.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean,
When you
looking
make
back, would
mistakes
you
is when you learn, when everything's going right, you don't really it's kinda like autopilot. You're just
yeah.
kinda going through the motions, but no, it was good. This really kind of it was a reality, like a wake-up call. And also another reason why I really had to lean in on the systems and the processes so that these type of mistakes are not made again in the future.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. You went from I mean, you probably wouldn't even have given up the pain. Like, if you could go back and take it all away and go to where you were, you'd still be bifurcating with mass complexity. You wouldn't know what you want know now. You wouldn't have that relationship with the judge. I mean, the judge probably is impressed too. Have you ever connected with the judge?
I haven't had a reason to go before the judge, but I've had obviously more cases filed that she's been assigned to, and it seems to be well received so
Okay,
far.
good. Well, congratulations on your success, and thanks for, being on the call and being so transparent.
Well, thanks for having me, and thank you so much for creating this wonderful thing that made such a big difference in my life and in my practice.
If you follow the systems, it's pretty simple. I mean, it pretty much works, but you guys gotta, like there's a stepping into the gap of trust where you gotta, like, just trust it's gonna work, and you did it.
Yeah, and it's all about not having to reinvent the wheel and letting people who are specialists and more skilled do what they're where I call it their zone of genius, right?
Yeah,
Let Phil handle that. I'll handle the legal advice and the back end.
yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Shireen. Appreciate you being on.
Thank you so much, Phil.